Each day, working at the Catholic hospital, I searched the census by religion. At last, a Jewish name, Anna Schwartz, age 62. It was one of those days, though, where secretly I hoped she might be sleeping. I could leave a note wishing her a Shabbat Shalom, and if she needed anything, the nurse could page me back and I would come back for a visit. But when I arrived at Anna's door, she was awake. When I introduced myself to her as one of the hospital's Jewish chaplains, she immediately welcomed my visit. Anna began to share some of her recent hardships. My mother died 6 months ago, she told me. And then my husband died 3 months later. It's just been rough. We chatted for a little while about all sorts of things. She shared the sadness in her heart about these recent deaths. They were her life. She recalled the rich Jewish life they all shared together, and then she became very sleepy. I asked Anna if she would like me to recite a prayer before I left. She said she would love that. Do you know your Hebrew name? I asked Anna. Hannah, she replied. I smiled. That's my Hebrew name too. As I recited Misha Berach, amen, she said, thank you very much. Come visit again. The following week, I went to visit Anna again, and this time she was sleeping. So I went back a few times that week, and we had some short conversations. And 2 weeks after my initial visit, I knocked on Anna's door, entered her room, and found a completely changed Anna. She was no longer communicative. Working on the neurostroke floor at the hospital, this was not an unusual occurrence. But this time it felt different. And I was sad. Somewhere inside of me, I knew that I would never see Anna again. This wasn't the only time that I felt spiritually and emotionally attached to a patient. It's a weird experience working in the hospital. Each evening, when I left the hospital, I knew that I might not see a particular patient or family again. When I experienced this with Anna, I felt sad. The temporary nature of our relationship challenged me. I thought of how if I worked in a congregation and Anna were a member of the synagogue, I could follow up with her family. But this was different. There were HIPAA rules and regulations that prevent such contact, and even if there weren't, I knew it wasn't appropriate. I learned a lot of things during my summer CPE experience, but learning to cope and accept the fact that I could engage in a short encounter and it could still be meaningful and transformative was a lesson of immense import. Living with the temporary is something we encounter every day. Yet despite the fleeting nature of our lives, there is a societal desire towards permanence. Think about it this way. Ever wonder why so many children's books end and they all lived happily ever after? These words generate a warm feeling inside us that evoke a picture of stability and security. They assure us permanence and happy endings. Were it that easy. As we go through life, many of us cling to our most prized possessions, our family, our friends, our homes. Perhaps that's why cameras and video recorders are so popular. We attempt to capture a moment so that it will last forever. We sense permanence and derive comfort from the known, be it in our jobs, in the cities in which we live, in our synagogues, and in our Jewish communities. But while we may feel discomfort with the transient nature of impermanence and avoid the unknown, embracing the temporary can open doors for us that we might never allow for if we fixate on the myth that we can hold on forever, instead of being present and embracing the meaning in a given moment. When the people of Israel journeyed through the wilderness, they too faced impermanence. This week we learn about the building of the Mishkan, as the Parsha details a series of instructions that continues for many chapters. Rabbi Alan Liu wrote about this lengthy description, quote, "The point seems to be that the Torah is not trying to teach us, not even tell us anything here. Rather, it seems interested in simply engraving the image of the tabernacle in our psyches, as if it were spiritually important to have this image there, as if there were something in the structure of the tabernacle we need to impose on our inner structure, as if we need to bring our own inner life into harmony with this design," end quote. Chapter after chapter, God details each instruction of the tabernacle, a structure the Israelites built, only then to take down and rebuild as they journeyed along. What might the Israelites have felt each time they had to take down their holy sanctuary? Was this the final place where the tabernacle would stand? Was there a deep sense of fear and anxiety? Would they ever have the time to rebuild and put the tabernacle back up? Would it look the same? Would everyone make it alive and still be there the next time they put it up? Can you imagine the flood of emotions that they must have experienced? A loss for what had been, and a potential fear of the unknown, of what was to come next. In this sense, the Israelites were forced to confront the temporal realities of life in ways we cannot imagine. Their life at this time was literally a journey, no home to speak of. So how did the Israelites come to accept the fact of the lack of permanence in their lives and live with the temporary? When God instructed the Israelites to build the tabernacle, God commanded, "Ve'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham." Make for me a mikdash that I may dwell among them. God does not command the Israelites to build the mikdash for God to dwell in, but rather acknowledges that God will dwell among the Israelites wherever they are. In other words, the text teaches that God dwells among the Israelites with or without a permanent physical space. Indeed, it was the process of building the Mishkan that grounded them, brought them closer to God, and closer to one another within the community. If the Israelites became accustomed to the transience of the tabernacle, the physical edifice and nature of the temple introduced a radical sense of lastingness in their lives. As with the tabernacle, God commanded Solomon to build the temple, "So v'shachanti b'toch b'nei Yisrael," that I may dwell among the people Israel. When the temple was destroyed and the second temple followed, the people were forced to regroup and seek meaning in the temporary once again. They had to learn to cope with the loss of permanence, cope with the anxiety of the uncertainty of the future of the Jewish people, the uncertainty of the future of Judaism. These uncertainties still echo deep in our souls as we try to cope with many of the same concerns. Ultimately, our souls beckon and yearn to reject the truth that we are by nature finite. And so we try so hard throughout our lifespan to construct facades of permanence because we think they will alleviate the pain we all have as humans. Examples range from the most concrete to the most ephemeral. Just take a look at our synagogues today. Why we spend so much time, money, and effort on membership. Membership provides that sense of security and comfort we yearn for. In effect, building up our membership helps us feel more permanent. But as we know, membership is anything but permanent. We can become fearful as we read studies and statistics that remind us that Judaism as we know it may not look the same. And so we turn to the future generations as a sort of defensive mechanism and strive to hold on to the permanence of what we know, the programs, the physical structures of our synagogue buildings, the organizational structures of our synagogues. We may yearn for a world of permanence, but we cannot escape the fact that each generation is in fact temporary, and the next generation may not look like the one that came before it. Like the Israelites, we are constantly reminded that we must build, take down, and rebuild as we look towards the next generation. The Israelites' steps forward on their journey were strengthened by the faith that it was going to be okay, that they would indeed rebuild the Mishkan time and time again. We too must rely on our faith if we are to take down the metaphorical boundaries that we perceive hold up our structures. We must come to accept the temporary nature of each generation so we can think about them fluidly. We cannot simply expect for what worked for one generation to work for the next. Dismantling and rebuilding requires risk-taking, but it also enables growth. In order for the Israelites to move forward, they were forced to take down and rebuild. If we strive to move forward, even if it scares us, we too must be willing to take down and rebuild. At the end of the week, on Friday before Shabbat, I made another visit. I walked into the room and met Anna's brother, sister-in-law, and nephew. She's going to die, her brother told me. She told us how much your visits meant to her. She loved that you shared the same Hebrew name. I held Anna's brother's hand, and we joined around Anna's bedside. Can you say a prayer? Her sister asked. She loved when you prayed with her. We went around the circle, and each of Anna's family members spoke as I concluded with a short prayer. Her family thanked me. I wished them a Shabbat Shalom. It was the last time I saw the Schwartz family. We may walk through life with fear and anxiety so rooted around the temporal nature of our existence that we are blinded to the eternally permanent unfolding world which abides always. If we build up these constructs and bind ourselves so tightly to them because we believe they are permanent, we will miss being a part of that which is bigger than us and is enduring. I will likely never see the Schwartz family again, but that does not make the relationship I built with their family irrelevant. Impermanence does not negate relevance or importance. It deepens it. Let our relationship to impermanence be one of resilience. As we encounter the myriad transition points throughout our lives, let us learn to embrace together the potential for meaning and purpose deeply rooted in every single moment of our lives. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehachianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu azman hazeh.